Science doesn't always happen in labs. Sometimes it happens in bars, on stages, on podcasts, on Twitter. My guest today is Dr. Elodie Chabrol, a neuroscientist who didn't quit science but very intentionally changed where it lives. With a PhD in neurogenetics and years of research behind her, Elodie stepped out of the lab and into full-time science communication, bringing science to people one conversation at a time. She's the international director of Pint of Science, the global festival that puts researchers in pubs instead of lecture halls, a freelance science communicator, consultant, a trainer, a podcast host, and someone who has helped scientists all over the world to speak with clarity, confidence, and joy. Elodie knows what it's like to build something while still in research, to take the leap into freelancing, to worry about income, to say yes to too much, and eventually to learn how to say no. She'd lived the freedom, the fear, the messy middle of making science public. She once gave me baobab seeds, which are now living their best life as bonsai. And honestly, that feels like the metaphor for her work, planting science in unexpected places and watching it grow in ways you didn't plan. Today, we are unpeeling science beyond the lab, talking about freelancing, science communication, identity, and what happens when you realize you are not living science, you are expanding it. So grab your coffee, your banana, your curiosity, maybe one or two plants, and let's unpeel the life of Elodie Chabrol. Welcome, Elodie.
Hey,
How are you?
good, and you?
Very good. I'm very happy to have you here.
I'm very happy to be here as well. I was rearranging everything.
That's fine. That's fine. It's early in the morning. So yeah, I've seen that you're extra busy lately. I've seen you in social media in a train from another train in one city, other city, training lots of people. So it's a difficult beginning of 2026.
It
Or you're
is,
happy?
yeah, it's very busy, but it's very nice as well. I'm not living in a big city anymore, so yeah, I spend a lot of time on trains, but I love them because I can concentrate, I can just sit and work, or I can just
Work a
relax
little
if
bit.
I need to. Yeah.
Super.
So it's
Yeah, I've seen
okay.
your.
And I bought the best thing ever. It's a thermos because I drink a lot of tea, and it's a
Okay.
thermos that you can plug, and that is
Oh,
actually like it's a kettle. It's a
okay.
portable kettle. So now I can make my tea even on the train. So this is
That's
really good.
fantastic. Very good device. I'm not sure, but you became like ambassador for Casio in this section of women doing science, something like that. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, exactly. So Casio has a program that is called Women Do Science, and the idea is to basically give role models to kids in schools. So it goes from putting women portraits on calculators, on
Wow,
stickers, on
amazing.
posters that they put in the classes, having like activity booklets, and also organizing activities with schools, and also like financing or funding some internships and that kind of thing. And so it started in Spain actually almost 8 years ago,
Okay.
and the French one, they started the program again, but they started with lots of Spanish women, which was really cool. But they decided let's have some French ones, and they asked me to be one of them, which is a huge honor. Honestly, I think it's 2025 was like the highlight of the year, but also the highlight
Exactly.
of my life. So they asked an illustrator to draw a portrait of me,
Wow.
so this is basically me, which is really cool because I
And
could add my cat plume.
and the nice t-shirt.
Exactly, and a tardigrade t-shirt,
Uh-huh.
and this is going in classes, so it was so unreal to see teachers, that sent me pictures of it in classes.
You deserve that and more. I'm very happy for you. Last year you trained like 600 people. Wow, that's a lot of people. And this
Yeah,
year it
it's
started heavy again.
exactly. It's a lot of people, and it started even better this year. So
Mm-hmm.
600 in science communication, from quick training 1 hour to like personal long coaching and everything. And already in 2026, I'm almost 100 already in
Wow.
like less than a month
Yes, I'm very
of work.
excited
So
to
it's
to have you here in the podcast, and because of all these emotions, I went immediately to the end. But I would like to start from the beginning to know more
yes.
about you. Yeah, sorry, but we went to the end. but it's good. I like this narrative also. I like movies, and I like the movies that sometimes it starts with the end of the movie. So you're
Exactly.
from France, right?
Yes, I'm from Paris actually.
Paris. Wow,
Yeah,
nice.
one of the few. Yeah. So I'm born in
Okay.
Paris, which
Hmm.
I've heard. The more I said it, the more people are like, "Oh, it's really rare to have people are actually born in Paris." My
Yeah.
parents were in Paris, and my grandparents were in Paris. So not
Okay.
originally, but everyone was living there, so it
Yes.
was pretty cool. I've been raised by my grandfather,
Hmm.
which was a painter, and it was really good because I didn't realize at that time, but I think it's because of him. I'm a scientist in my heart
Hmm.
because he was always taking me on walks, looking at the sunset, looking at plants. And then I realized later that actually he didn't write, he illustrated books because
Wow.
at that time, when you had books, you had to have someone drawing the things. And there is
Yes.
one behind me, and actually, I find them again, like on second hand. And it's books about nature, about the mountain. And it was so weird because I basically looked at it and I was like, I'm a hiker now. And he drew like the cycle of life of the mountain goat, which I realized I'm watching when I'm going hiking.
Yes.
And I realized later it's probably thanks to him I'm a scientist because he wasn't a scientist, but he was someone that loved nature, loved to
Nature.
draw
Yes.
nature, to look at nature, and I was really into looking at it. And also, I've been raised so by both my grandparents, but more my granddad. But my grandmother was a
Hmm.
teacher, and when I had homework, she was never giving me the solution, which was turning me a bit nuts, but she was always giving me a bit of clues for me to find it
Yeah.
myself.
Okay.
So I
Nice.
realized later, I was like, yeah, this is why I'm a scientist, basically.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
interesting because usually, of course, parents are always busy working, and grandparents, at least in many people I know, have a big influence on the life of the kids. That's very nice. When do you decided to go to university?
So there's a plot twist in my story.
Okay,
When
okay.
I was younger, I was riding horses. So my parents had
Mm-hmm.
a house in Normandy, and from Paris it's like less than 2 hours. So almost every weekend, almost every holidays, I was there. I was riding horses. I really loved it, and I wanted to be a horse riding teacher. So I was seeing
Okay.
myself having a farm, living with my horses. I wanted even to have like a pedagogical farm where you have kids coming, to
Yes.
like discover all the animals, and I could ride them, like teach them how to ride, not ride the kids, obviously, teach them how to ride. But I had a big accident on the summer of my 17th birthday, and actually I broke both of my knees that summer, like pretty badly.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow.
mhm. I couldn't ride anymore after that, and I had to find
At
another
all?
thing to at
At
all.
all? Like,
Like
oh,
it's really bad to the point that
okay.
one of my knee is not absolutely fixed yet, and the problem is that I fell from the horse and I fell standing,
Mm.
and my knee
Yes, yes, yes.
just
Wow.
like folded backward, which is not something that
Ouch.
you should do. Don't do that at home. And the ligament just completely broke, and it's the kind of
Wow.
ligament that are really not used to
Yes.
repair because it's not happening very often, or it's happening
No.
in very weird cases. So it's not fixed. It was not to be fixed for a while. It's still not fixed, but it's fine. So I had to find something else. And I was really good in science and especially biology. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I've
Okay.
always wanted to be a teacher. So I'm going to be a biology teacher. And then I
Okay.
went to the university, and I didn't want to be a researcher at that time. But I've got the best, worst advice ever. I went to university and I said, "Oh, I want to be a science teacher. Which kind of science I need to do?" Because for you had a contest then to be able
Yes.
to be a teacher, and it was in like biology and geology, like both of them mixed. So I was like, "Do I need to do biology or geology? Like, what's the best?" And they were like, "Oh, you shouldn't do that contest because you have like a lot of people that are really trained for that. University doesn't train you for that, so it's going to be very complicated. You should do a PhD, and you should then teach in university. It's a much easier career path. No
Okay.
contest, nothing." And I was like, okay, very
Okay.
naive. It's the worst advice ever because you have a contest just to get the money to actually do your PhD. So they were
Ah,
like, no
okay.
contest. Yeah, yeah, sure. And I was like, okay. And then I started doing my master, and I went to a research lab, and I completely fell in love with research. So that's why I say
Yes,
it's the best, worst advice in my life because
exactly.
I'm happy they give it to me, but it was so bad. It wasn't like a real thing they told me, but it was good.
When did you first realize that research wasn't the only way you wanted to be close to science?
I think it's when I started science communication, I realized, wow, there is an entire like branch of ways of actually doing cool things around science. And I think when I started, I really sound like a dinosaur when I say it, but when I started 13
Mhm.
years ago, it wasn't something that was as
No,
much developed as now.
no.
So
It,
I
it was
just
not even
realized
it was not even called science communication.
exactly. It
I
was
think
just like
we
we
realized of that later that we were doing something that was called like that.
exactly. So it was something that you were not supposed to do. My boss, for example, told me to
Yeah,
hide it from my resume because it would look like I was unfocused on science. Now, grants are asking to do science communication and to get
exactly.
the money. So, the situation is very different. So I started doing that. And actually, I think it was a very long way for me to find my right spot in life, but I really started doing science communication, and I felt okay. I think this is where I'm supposed to be. Like a puzzle, and it was like my final piece of puzzle to see the big picture, and I was like, okay, this is what I like because I'm basically like doing really cool science stuff. And the thing is, I'm not. So you have two types of science communicators. You have people that actually, like the real science communicators, are communicating about the science. And
Hmm.
from the beginning, I didn't really do that. I did more enabling people to do that by creating events, by already training them when I was still in the lab, by doing everything I can so people can actually communicate their science. So it's always been my thing.
Yeah.
I do science communication myself. I like it, but I enjoy even more having PhD students that don't know how to do, and then I train them, and at the end they do a really cool pitch on their research, and I'm like, wow, this is cool. And they're gonna take that away, and they're gonna do that for like their entire career, and I'm feeling like this is really a really cool thing to do. And at the end, I'm kind of a teacher. It's just
Indeed. Yeah, before we go into the science communication more in detail, I want to ask you
yeah,
a little bit more about your time as researcher. So,
yeah.
what did science give to you during your years in the lab? And
So
what
I
also,
think,
let's say also, what did they take from you?
oh my god, it took from me
Difficult
a
question.
lot of hair. I would say I got a lot of gray hair during that time. I think um, what it take from so what it gave me. Let's start with the positive. I think
Yeah.
it gave me a way of thinking that I really like. And I didn't realize I was so much a scientist in my heart until I started my podcast. And I really felt like, in the lab, you're going to check all the protocols when you do a new experiment, the protocols that have been done. Then you ask people around, and then you start the first one, and then you readapt and everything. And it's basically like that I've done for my podcast. And I realized it
Hmm.
later, and I was like, oh, it's really like the methods, the scientific methods, probably also being very chaotically organized in a way that when I was doing my research, I always had like several experiments at the same time. So I was
Hmm.
running everywhere, but it was really
Yes.
organized in a way that, oh, I have 30 minutes here. Oh, I can do that in the meantime, and I can do that, and I can do that. So from the outside, it looks like I'm a squirrel on drugs, because I'm like going from one thing to another.
Yes. Sounds
But
familiar.
exactly. But at the end, it's just super efficient, and I've done lots of things. It's just that it's tiny bits of focusing on it. It's not going to be an entire day focusing on one thing. It's going to be like, oh, a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of this, oh, again, a bit of that. So definitely gave me that. What did it take from me? I think it was especially the end where I was in a lab that was very sexist. The
Hmm.
end was very difficult because I had a super cool paper, and then all the men in my lab, they wanted to be like a name on the paper as well. So basically, I kind of lost a bit of authorships of my data.
Yes.
I really felt, and I think science did that to me. I really felt like an imposter
Mhm.
And I think it's not only me. And in science, the problem is that people are always asking you, you know, when you go on conference and you're doing a conference, often they are asking you questions, but it's not always very nice. It's always
No.
to push you to your limits, to see where you know. So it's not always very, very cool. And I think it took that from me, the fact that, you know, at the beginning, I was always like, I'm not good enough. You know, like always thinking, oh, you know, there are better people than me. I'm not good enough. A
Exactly.
bit of an imposter syndrome, I would
Imposter
say.
syndrome. Yeah. Is
This is what science does to you, because they are always
yes.
trying to see if you know better. I've discussed with that a week ago with someone, and that person was telling me I'm always afraid, terrified of the questions in science, and I said,
Yeah.
and they are terrified often in science communication that the public is going to ask really terrifying questions. And I say, when you do science communication, actually, you realize that people ask questions out of curiosity.
Yeah.
And it's way nicer than in science when they want to test you sometimes, and most of the
Exactly.
times, actually, or show that they know. So they are going to ask you a
Yes.
question you don't know how to answer just to show that they know the answer. So it's not cool. So I would say
It,
this is the part that took a bit of life from me.
is like that typical person who says like this is not a questions, it's more a comment,
It's a
something
comment.
like that.
Yeah,
Yes.
that.
Yeah. For me, it took also my motivation at some point, but and we have very similar stories. But this is not about me. But Elodie has also a very nice podcast, and I was invited there to talk. So if you want to see it, we will put the link somewhere here. So please go and have a look.
When I left the lab, I had a bit of a identity crisis,
Mm.
and I was really like, am I still a scientist? I think that was the thing. I
Yeah.
didn't know how to call myself. I was like, am I still a scientist? And I realized I'm not a researcher anymore, but I'll be a scientist forever. And yeah, now people are doing the science, and I'm just not doing it anymore, but I'm helping them express it better. So it's really cool. But yeah, living science was kind of hard because it was everything I did and what I wanted to do with my life for 12 years. So, you know, it's a bit of your identity. You're a researcher. So when you're not a
Yes.
researcher anymore, what are you?
Exactly.
And I was starting in science communication, so I felt like, oh, I'm not a communicator. Especially, I'm not the kind of person that communicates science. I'm more of a like person in the shadows that is going to train you or organize cool things so then you can do it. So I really felt like, oh, who am I? What's
Exactly.
happening?
It's difficult for me. I didn't completely, let's say, leave science, but I lived the academia. I went to
Mm,
industry, and it was also terrifying and a crisis for me for the same reason. I thought like, okay, I'm still a scientist or not? And anyway, it feels like a failure at some point, but then you realize that it's not. It's just a next step, right?
exactly. I actually have one of my talks, you know, when people ask me about to give a talk about my background and my
Yeah.
career, I usually call it how I failed successfully. And this is
It is.
exactly how I would describe it. I failed science,
Yes.
but it's very successfully because what I'm doing now, I'm 10 times more happy. And I think I'm also doing, like, I'm discussing with lots of people doing lots of different things. I really enjoy it. And I feel like actually, yeah, I failed successfully. So this is how I do.
Yes.
I say it usually. I say, oh, I failed
Fall
successfully.
with style.
Exactly.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit more about science communication now. One of the, let's say, the most visible things that I see during your career is the pint of science, because
Hmm.
I've seen that it's expanding and very important. And later I realized that you were the director. So we met in Twitter some years ago when all the things of the pandemia. Everyone was very connected on Twitter. By the way,
Yeah.
Twitter for this community completely disappeared. I don't see any more of my friends there. But at that time, we were all connected. A big community, and we were sharing tips about plants, drawings, and then science communication. There was where we meet. So can you tell me a little bit more about the Pint of Science?
Yes, so Pint of Science is a science festival, and the idea is to have scientists in pubs and cafes during 3 nights in May, in simultaneously in lots of places in the world. So last year, 2025, we were in 27 countries, and that was
Oh,
more than 500 cities at the same time. So meaning they have in-person events at the same time. And big cities like, for example, London, I think they have like 50 per night. But then we also go to small villages and really tiny places that have one for the entire festival. So it really depends. And we have volunteers organizing it. I calculated not long ago, and we have almost 7,000 volunteers around the
Oof.
world organizing
Wow.
it. Yeah, it's big. And it started in 2013 in the UK, and actually it's two researchers in London that wanted to do that, and I joined just after they started. So I helped the team creating it really from the very beginning, from scratch. We were all scientists, not knowing what we were doing. It was actually quite stressful the first year because, you know, we were learning at the same time as we were doing it. So every time we were doing something, we were like, okay, note for next year, we shouldn't do it that late. I should have done that before.
Exactly.
Okay, I know now.
Okay.
But then, yeah, we created that festival that was supposed to be UK. And then
Mm-hmm.
we didn't think about really after, and it worked really well. And since I'm French, I wanted it everywhere, especially in France. So then
Yeah,
we
of
started
course.
expanding to other countries. And for a few years, I was still postdocing. And dealing with that, I was helping some of the new countries. And at one point, it was too much for me to do that. And also, research didn't pan out. So I became international director in 2017, so almost 9 years ago.
Okay.
And the idea was to help new countries to start every year.
It's a lot of work to coordinate that amount of events and people. I can imagine.
Well, it's okay because you have lots of countries that already are used to it. I'm training the new
Mm-hmm.
directors mostly. So some people they are going to need they're going to need only 1 year. Some people are going to need a second year to help them
Yeah.
really be sure. And basically, I always tell them I babysit them until the festival. And they're like, oh, you know, you say babysitting. And I'm like, wait, yeah, wait for like the month before the festival because I'm part organizer, part therapist because, you know, they are very stressed. So I'm listening to like everything that happens for them, like all the stress
Mm.
they have. So it's really like being a babysitter and help them have their first steps at the first
Yes.
festival
Yeah.
edition they do.
So I went to one here in Bachingen 2 years ago. I think it
Hmm.
was very interesting. And it's not the most like obvious place to go to talk about science, I would say, but it works very well. What do you think that setting works so well? The
I
alcohol,
think
maybe?
it's No, so that's the thing we're trying because a lot of people are actually telling us, you're promoting alcohol. And if you look at it, we're never talking about like having a beer because we
Okay.
are really trying to not promote that. But I think it's just, and everyone says that, all the participants, it's the fact that you are in a setting that doesn't feel like a
Exactly.
conference,
Yes.
doesn't feel like the scientist is actually on a stage, like very big stage, very far. The audience feels friendly because usually we have games or activities. So you feel more okay to ask questions. Like I've seen so many questions about the scientists themselves. Like, why did you study that? Like, how is this to do a PhD? When did you decide to do it? Sometimes people are asking that and also science questions. But it's really the fact that they have the feeling they are spending an evening with a scientist, and then they can always finish with like around a drink, discuss, and the setting really is changing your brain from like, oh, this is a conference to actually this is a really cool moment and I can ask all my questions. So I think it's
Okay.
just that changing the settings.
That works very well indeed because when you go to a conference, it's so difficult sometimes to do this networking, especially for introverts. It feels wrong even when you try to talk to a big scientist or something that while you're in this environment in a bar, more friendly environment is just, I think it naturally goes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just natural. And also, usually conferences, you can have like 100 people for Pint to Sense, or often it's like smaller places. And yeah, just the
Mm-hmm.
fact, just how everyone behaves, they behave like they are having drinks. So they are more relaxed, and the scientists are
Exactly.
more relaxed as well. So everything is just the walls between the scientists and the public just go,
Yes.
they go down, and
I
it's
guess
way
I guess
nicer.
in a bar you feel everyone is the same, but in a
Exactly.
conference you feel the, how do you call the, I forgot the word in English, the hierarchy, like
Hierarchy. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, you train scientists to pitch and also to speak clearly, confident, with joy. What do you think is the most common mistake or that you often see in these cases?
Can I get two?
Yeah, of course.
Can I say two? So often, I would say the biggest mistake is to not think about the context.
Hmm.
So the two things, it's not to think too much about the context and not to think too much about people you're talking to, because often we're thinking when we're doing science, the public, it's either, we think scientist and then I'm going to go full jargon and like crazy science, whatever, or the public, and then I'm going to be careful. But then even within the public, you have different ages. For
Yeah.
example, my boss did a Pint of Science evening, but he used a metaphor for gene therapy with a Cadbury image from the 80s, advertisement from the 80s that no one had seen because everyone was not born at that time, and it was really a flop because everyone was like, what is he talking about? It's like, entering a cell is as complicated as this man, like to put chocolates in the woman's bedroom. So also the cultural shock was a bit bad. So I would say think about your audience, because even within scientists, when you go to conferences, I used to go to talks and I
Yeah.
used to not always understand all the talks. And when I was a
Of
PhD
course.
student, I thought it was me because I'm a PhD student. Then I was a postdoc, I thought it's me because I'm a young postdoc. And then after 8 years of postdoc, I was like, no, it's them. It's really
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
It's just the people don't think about their acronyms, about like all the jargons they are using. So I would say, yeah, think about your audience and definitely never forget the context, because even if you talk to a scientific audience, not everyone knows why you're studying that, why it's interesting, what's the point, And I'm a very, I'm a very big fan of the Backstreet Boys, and my memory way to remember is that you have this song of the Backstreet Boys when they say "Tell me why." So you need to make sure the public never is asking "Tell me why," basically.
Okay.
And I
It's
did
very
some
good
trainings,
advice.
and it was really cool because I told them, I was like, you need to never forget the context, and if you think about tell me why, then tell me why it's bad. And they had to train themselves, the whole lab, and it was so funny because after the talk, I was always being like, okay, so what's your feedback? And then they were like, tell me why, singing the
Mm.
Backstreet Boys. And I was like, yeah, context was missing. And now they've written to me and they're like, yeah, even when we are preparing articles now, we're singing the Backstreet Boys thanks to you. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a
Probably
good
you
way of
probably you
remembering.
transfer it to me now. I will be singing
Yes,
that song the whole day.
exactly. You're welcome. And it's a good way, you think if they think why, tell me why. It's basically like you need to do more context. So this is
Mm,
the two things, and yeah, this is my present for you.
exactly. Super. I have that worm in my ear now the whole
Yes,
day.
you're welcome.
So, talking about science communication, and especially, I feel that some scientists always, I think they underestimate the ability to communicate. What do you think
Mm.
about that? Of course, it's not for everyone, but I think many could do it, but they don't do it because they think they are not enough.
Yeah, exactly. Often when I'm training, actually my training is little tips. Every time I have someone telling me, it's not crazy change, it's really little practical tips. Like, think about this. If you use a big number or a small number, try to like bring it to something that people know. Like little things to do. And I give them actually I have a recipe in 6 steps to like think about preparing your thing, and then it turns them into better communicators. And I think it's not much, it's little things, but the problem is that it's not often something that you can find on your own, or you really need to be trained. And I think that's the value of the training. You need someone to teach you those things, and
Hmm.
also you need a good trainer. Basically, what I always do is that I go from the fact that you are a person with sensitivities, with ideas, and I'm not trying to put you in a box to do things in a way. I'm trying to help you. I'm basically, this story of like if you're giving someone a fish, he will be fed for one day. If you teach him how to, or her, how to fish, it's gonna last for life. So
Yes.
it's exactly how I do my training. And I know some people are doing things like telling them to like do exactly like things in a situation, but then it doesn't help for like all the time. It's more like, oh, you need to pitch, then this is how you need to do your pitch, but then everyone does the same pitch, the same structure.
Yeah.
So but I would say it's important to get trained and to try, because you have different ways. Like, for example, I'm not a good writer. I don't really like it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think for scientists, it's the same. You can realize, oh, maybe I don't like to write. I like to do conferences. For people, it might be different. They might actually love writing and not wanting to do conferences. So you have tons of different kinds of science communication. So you need
Yes,
to find the thing that fits you, definitely. And
that's
if nothing
correct.
fits you, then at least, you've tried, and you have people
Yeah,
that can do the science
true.
communication on your project.
I often say to my colleagues and people that because they some of them really appreciate what I do, others say like I'm not going to do it. You know, it's up to you. It's not that people force you to do it because there are also professional science communicators that can help you to do that. But we passed too
Exactly.
fast again from the
Sorry.
pint of no. It's also my fault. I'm not an expert on these topics, but I just want to let other people know the inspiring stories like yours. So because we talk about the pint of science, but then we didn't tell the people that you're actually giving training. You're a freelancer
Yeah.
and you give all this training that you've been talking. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I give trainings. So really, I work with lots of different people. I work with universities to do PhD students training in their programs. I work with labs as well. I have
Mm-hmm.
labs that contact me and are like, "Can you come to do a training?" And then I also work with companies. I work with like a broad range of people. And the
Yes.
idea is that I'm not forcing my thing on them. It's more like, what do you want to do with it? Do you want like for them to have some basis and then they do that, or they need to be trained for a specific conference, for example, or for like pitching in 3 minutes or in general? So then we decide what's the format and what they should know. And then I go, and often I can also do it online. There is like a big part of it that is very doable online, even like the whole thing sometimes. So yeah, this is how I do, and I love it because it's really cool to see some subjects. People they bring it to you. They're like, oh, I'm working on this, and it's so complicated, and they're like, oh, I'm not sure it's going to be actually feasible. Maybe my subject is too theoretical. It's not enough practical, so it's difficult to communicate about it. And then after a bit of work, they actually do something really cool, and it's so nice
Yes.
to see that.
To prepare a little bit for this interview, I was, of course, looking information on the internet about you and your web. By the way, I will put your web here so people can visit it. Ah, a little
Bloom
cat.
is joining.
Whoa.
She takes quite a lot of work and love.
Cute. So, do you
So
remember
you
when
were like,
you
uh,
Ah, yeah, sorry. Yes. So I was
sorry.
looking for your information. No, I just wanted to share your web so people can see how to contact you and how to see what you do and if you can
Thank
help them
you.
maybe. Yes.
Yes, yes,
So
I'd be
do you
happy.
remember when was the moment you said like, okay, I'm going to do freelancing, but I'm not going to work anymore in the lab? Do you remember the year or and how was the process?
So I think it was 2017, so it was quite late. It was when I was writing my article, and I don't know why, I was still hopeful. I would still work in science, and I loved science communication, but I was really thinking I could do both.
Mm-hmm.
And the paper, it was really going badly. As I said,
Yeah.
lots of people wanted to have their names on this paper, and so the quality of it completely decreased. And I realized even if I have an article, it's not going to be okay for my resume. I'm never going to be a scientist, a researcher. And at the same time, we were struggling for Pint of Science to actually have new countries joining because we needed someone that would be available at any time. Because, for example, when you have Australia, you need to have calls at like 6 in the morning or very late at night. It's the same for the
Mm-hmm.
US. And also, Pint of Science, the team in the UK, they finally had a bit of money. So everything at the same time, like my paper was not good, and I was thinking my career is screwed. I had money; I could have stayed a postdoc in the lab forever, or worked
Mm-hmm.
on a spin-off, like a company that we were doing gene therapy. So they developed a startup. So I could have worked, there. Then Pint of Sense was like, "We have money; we can make you international director full time." And I was like, "Okay, this is happening." So this
Mm-hmm.
is what I did. So 2017 and plot twist again. I feel like my life is full of plot twists. Months. So that was September 2017, and then in December, the
Mm-hmm.
UK Pint of Science team told me, by the way, we don't have enough money for you to stay full time. And then I was like, okay, so it means I need to find other clients. And the thing that happened is that I did so many things for Pint of Science, and I was so visible because I not just Pint of Science, but I went to every single science communication event that I could because I loved
Yeah.
it. That people started to contact me to ask me to do things for them, like social media, like training scientists and everything, like I did for Pint of Science. So then I had people contacting me and I started working as a freelancer. So the first part of the freelancing was supposed to be just Pint of Science, but it didn't go as planned actually at all. And it was a bit of a panic for a few months. And then yeah, I started doing lots of like trainings, a lot of trainings, which was cool because it's what I liked, consulting, and this is what I do now. So it worked out really well.
Sometimes you have to go out of this comfort zone to achieve more things, right?
Exactly, and also I left research to do that Pint of Science, work. And when they told me we don't have money anymore, I felt like, okay, I just left my whole
Exactly.
life for that,
For that.
and now it's not happening. And I didn't really think about freelancing that much because I had Pint of Science,
Yeah.
which was taking me like a lot of time already. So it was a few months where I was really in deep panic, especially I moved back to Paris from the UK. So, I completely changed my life and I was like, what did I do? Why did I leave my postdoc with like, I had money, I could have gone on forever with the project that was going on really well. Why did I do that to myself? And then, because I was a lot on social media, as you said, Twitter was like the golden
Yeah.
age at that time. People starting noticing me, being like, oh, but you're in France now, can you do that for us? And it really saved me. I was lucky enough. I always think I'm lucky, and my husband says no, it's work because
Yeah,
I'm on
exactly.
social media. So I was advertising what I was doing, and I also liked always to advertise like the behind the scenes of Pint of Science, the real work I was doing, not just like, oh, I'm directing, but I'm training people, I'm doing this, that. So people starting contacting me. So I even had the chance of not having to go ask people to work for them. They came to me directly. But I had this panic for like a few months where I was like, what did I do with my life? And people now, they're like, oh, but your transition from the lab to freelancing has been so smooth. I'm like, no, 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 no. It
No, you
looks
don't know.
smooth from the outside, but
Exactly.
inside it was deep panic for a few months.
Yeah, some people romanticize that, but there are a lot of struggles behind.
Yeah, exactly. And when you see it on social media, of course, I'm not gonna say, oh my God, I'm
Yeah,
I'm so stressed. Sometimes
of
I was saying
course.
it a bit on Twitter, but I'm not gonna say, like, oh, panic, panic, panic. I had
Of course.
this is something that science gave me, the solution thing.
Yes.
Always like this is not working out. Instead of like, okay, being like this is bad, it's not working. It's really like, okay, how can I make it work? So the
Yeah.
solution, my brain is always turned into like solution mode. I think that's a
Yeah.
mix of academia and working in event management where
Yes.
something always goes wrong, so you're always ready for a shoe to drop, for something to go wrong, so you're always like, okay, I'm ready to
Yeah.
like imagine a solution, because with Pint of Science we've had so many stories that I didn't even think we would deal with.
Yeah. All the good things that happen to you is because of your hard work and constancy and dedication, and of course quality work. Because otherwise things are not coming. What your husband says is true. Like it's not luck. My
Yeah,
mother always tells me that I'm very lucky, and I said, Mother, please give me some credit. It's not just
yeah,
luck."
exactly, exactly.
So, how being outside academia changed how you value science?
I think it didn't change much, because the cool thing is that I've been in academia, so I know exactly how the struggles are. And also, a lot of people do science communication after just a PhD, but I feel like knowing what it's been to do a postdoc, to have, because I had my own PhD student,
Hmm.
do all the things. I feel like I'm super close to the scientists and I know their struggles. And even when I talk to them, when they say, oh, we are doing this because we're trying to have this grant, it really feels like it's fine. So I think I think it's the other way around, like having done so much academia made me value science and scientists a lot.
Yeah.
And being outside now, the cool thing is that I can actually deal with a lot of different subjects. So this is the thing that make me value different
Yeah.
science than before. I
Yes.
was working on epilepsy, so it was
Hmm.
like genetics and neuroscience was my science. But now I value a lot of different ones because I actually discovered lots of different projects and what people
Yeah.
are doing in human sciences, often that you don't really see when you're like a biologist, for example. So I think it made me value the diversity of science and subjects.
Being a scientist gives you a value for now being a science communicator, of course. I went to
Yeah.
a training in Germany. I was so frustrated because the person who was supposed to give the train was not a scientist, and it was like two completely worlds, and it didn't work
Yeah.
well. We were very frustrated. I think nobody really enjoyed that training. And have you considered to become in the future a professor, a teacher in this topic? Because, I've seen that more and more universities are offering science communication as part of not only a subject, like a complete career.
It's the second time someone is asking me. I have a friend actually that is a teacher in university, a lecturer in university, so teacher
Hmm.
and researcher, and she was like, "You should be science communication teacher in university," and I never thought about it. I would say maybe not now because I think I'm enjoying so much
Yeah.
working
And you are
chaotically
free.
on different projects. Yeah, I'm super free. I'm working on like different types of projects, meeting lots of people. So maybe later when if I get tired, but at the moment I really enjoy it. But yeah, it
I,
could be something.
I think it's
But
a
I
good
think at the moment I
possibility.
need to move. I need to meet lots of people.
Yeah.
I enjoy like the crazy going to one place, being on the train all the time.
Yes, I see that, and I love it. I love your post on social media from one train to another train. But at
Exactly.
least you keep us updated on what's happening. But this thing of being a teacher or professor is, I think, is something that you should consider. We pass to another section of my podcast that is called the banana questions,
Yes.
and these are a little bit more, let's call it difficult, controversial questions. How science communication become too focused on visibility instead of impact?
With the social networks, with like YouTube, podcast and everything, we're valuing a lot on like how many clicks, how many likes, how many views. And the problem, and this is so every year I'm going to Falling Walls in Berlin and I'm meeting science communicators and science engagers from everywhere in the world. And I feel very lucky because it's a moment of deep inspiration for me because I meet people that have projects where the impact is huge, but for a small amount of people. But I think it's important because when you realize, we always say, oh, you have people that are easy to reach for science, that are going to want to read or to want to have some science. And then you have the out of reach or like the difficult to reach kind of public. And the thing is, difficult to reach, it really depends how you do. And the thing that I love with Falling Walls is that I see people creating like crazy projects that have a very specific community in mind. So, for example, there is Tactile Universe in the
Hmm.
UK, and I love this thing because they had the idea of like the universe is not something that you can really access if you have vision impairment. And how do you do? And then they created little 3D blocks of the galaxy, and the idea is for to help vision impaired people to explore the universe with their touch. And I've done it as a person, like a seeing person, and they blindfolded me and they explained to me and they walked me through the whole thing. And I was like super deeply touched by it. And I think if I was a vision impaired person that cannot really see that kind of thing, and for the first time could I have access to it, it's amazing. So obviously you're gonna reach out to less people, but you're gonna
Hmm.
change their lives.
Yes.
And I think we need to be careful with the impact because I feel like impact now is like a number that you're going to put in a report, and the higher the better. But actually the first thing you need to think about is like, what do I want to do with it? And this is the discussion I have when we are discussing science communication with some labs, for example, that they want to reach out to some communities, and they're like, oh, we're going to create a podcast, for example. And I'm like, why a podcast? Oh, because people like it. And I'm like, yeah, but you need to think about your community and how to reach out to them. So
Yes.
that's the problem. It's, yeah, with social media, we're having like tons of visibility, but it doesn't mean really that deep
An
down
impact.
there is an impact. So we need to think. It's nice if you want visibility of the institute, of the university and everything. But if you want to have a specific impact on a specific community, then you need to think more than visibility, more like what do they like? How can we reach out to them in a way that is going to work? But for example, if I like put pictures on social media, will I actually reach that kind of community? You have some people that are like, oh, we want to reach out to kids, and then they use like Blue Sky or LinkedIn, and I'm like, go on TikTok. This is where they are, and they say, oh yeah, but
Hmm.
it's annoying. Yeah, but if you want to reach out to like a young audience, then you have to go where they are. They're never going to go
Exactly.
on LinkedIn or
No,
on Twitter or Blue Sky or that kind of thing. So
I
you
feel
have to
old because
adapt.
also somebody said like I told them in Facebook and said, "What Facebook? Facebook is for
Yeah.
the grandpas." I go, "Oh, okay, thanks."
Exactly, exactly. That's the thing. And actually, I went to Silbozats, which is a festival about science and media. And usually, so during a whole week, they have like documentaries, science and media installations. It's in the middle of Germany. It's in end of October, beginning of November every year. It's really cool because they do really cool things and often
Hmm.
very new. Like I had a concert and it was like the temperature of Earth put into a computer, and it was like computer made music with basically the temperature of Earth. It was so cool. So it's a different way, of showing data. And we had this day of discussing, and usually it's like with lots of people from documentary production, houses like BBC, Arte, very big ones. And we were talking about climate change, and we had some high school students there, and one of them said, "It's the first time I heard about climate change. It was when a teacher showed us a documentary in school, and then the production people were like, what? How is it possible? Because we feel like we are only doing documentaries about it. It feels like it's been years we are only doing that. We are only talking about it." And then the kid said, yeah, but anything that is lasting one more than 1 minute, I don't watch myself. They are watching like shorts on YouTube, shorts on
Yeah.
reels on Instagram or TikTok videos. And then the BBC guy realized, okay, it's because we do like long documentaries that the teacher is showing them, but at home, the parents don't always sit them for like a 45 or 52 minutes
No, indeed.
documentary. So it's really, they realized, and it was such a cool moment because they were like, okay, we realize now. And the kids were like, yeah, less than 1 minute. If it's more than 1 minute, basically, I don't watch it. And everyone was like, wow, a moment there.
It's true. Okay, another question I have is: do you ask scientists to communicate for free too often and call it outreach, or even worse, some people call it passion? Like, no, he does it because it's his passion. But I think there is a limit there. What do you think?
So, yes, you have different things. So, for example, if it's scientists in companies and they do communication, I would say they should be paid for it because it's a company thing. So they are basically
Mhm.
promoting the company. The problem with scientists in academia is that now grants are asking for it.
Yes.
So basically, if you don't communicate your research, you're not going to get your money to do the research. So it's a bit of a two-sort thing. But there is, and I think it needs to change a bit, but there is the tradition in science that you need to communicate for free. Even normally scientists, they pay to communicate because
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone that is listening is very like used to that, but basically when you write an article, it's funny because when I was saying to my family I had a science article, everyone was like, oh, did you get some money? No, 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 no.
No.
We are paying for it. We have to pay the journal. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that it's like paid thing. So we are gonna have a whatever journal we want. It's just it's you have a fee, and the bigger the journal is, it's difficult to get in. So it's very
Exactly.
scientifically, it's very checked and everything, but it's very pricey. I think one of the most like expensive one, they go to 10,000 euros for an article. And before it was funny. I think it stopped now, but when I was still doing research, they even made you pay more expensive for color, but they didn't do any like paper. It was PDF, most of the
Yeah.
time. So it's like, come on, before we could understand because you were printing your magazine. But now, like having a color fee. Anyway, this is the small anecdote. But yeah,
Is
the tradition around science is like scientists are paying for everything. When you're going for a congress, normally you're paying for the congress, your lab is
yeah.
paying for the travel. And so I've been asked, for example, a lot of time to give talks to congresses, and they are like, oh, you have to pay for your hotel and your train, and we're not paying you. And I was like, okay, so it means it's costing me money to work for free for you. So I think we need to change a lot of that, and also depending on like, if you're communicating, and if you're communicating for a company, definitely you need to be paid, I think, because it's an extra thing that you're doing. It's different skills. When it's academia, you need also to consider those people. If it's part of their research and they have to do it,
Yeah.
maybe, but it's always nice to have a bit of an extra, maybe not like €1,000 like you pay for big
No, exactly.
conferences, but a little extra, especially when it's like talks that are outside of what they do, like not scientific talks, like they have to do like posters and congresses. When it's pure science communication, the idea is to like have outreach to the people, to general public. It could be good. The thing is that double-sorted, because sometimes you have, at the moment, you have tons of opportunities as a scientist in academia to do talks. You don't get paid, but the cool thing is that it can also give you visibility to then do that if you want later.
That's
So
true.
I would say I think it's even more controversial than that. It's like the whole business model around science has to change, because we are
Definitely.
so used to make the scientists pay for everything, or at least like give their time for everything. And also, before it was not valued. That was a bit of a fight I had, to have it valued. So now in France, it's getting valued, to do science communication. But for a very long time, if you did science communication, it looked not good on your resume.
I agree. There are many things that definitely need to change. For example, you mentioned this very important fact about the journals, the papers, but also in that area, they don't even check the papers. They send the papers to reviewers, which are our other scientists who are not paid for doing that job. So
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
spend time. So I think there should be a balance. And as you said, if it's for a company and it's often, they should pay.
Yeah.
And if it's at university, at least they should reserve some time for that. Like, okay,
Yeah, exactly.
you are too busy with your research, but you have Fridays in the afternoon, you can focus on that. No worries about work. For example,
Yeah.
it's just a solution.
Yeah, and so it's good now, because in some universities and some institutes, they started having like prizes and awards when you do science communication, which is nice, because then it helps also with promotion. And you have some other institute that you can ask for, like it's not a raise, but it's like an extra pot of money every year when you do a lot of science communication. So it is cool to do that. I'm not saying like every talk someone needs to pay, but it's nice to be recognized for it. So in academia, yeah, it could be giving a bit of time, or even having like promotions based on that. Because if everyone is asking you to do science communication, even the grants and everything, and the university, and then you do it, and then everyone's like, oh, okay, it's cool, but all the time you spent doing that doesn't matter. So it's only the science. It's not cool. But yeah, it's
Cool.
it's the whole business model around science that is so unfair for scientists.
Okay, I have a last difficult banana question, and it's the following. Is science communication sometimes used to avoid fixing deeper problems in science itself?
Ooh, what do you mean by that?
Because sometimes, let's say, the science communicators promote science or show what they do, but they are not actually working on that. It's just telling things, but not
Yeah.
actually working on the solution, on the problem
Oh.
of this.
Yeah, so it's a bit like a shiny thing they are showing,
Yeah,
but they're actually not doing anything.
yeah,
Um, Sometimes, yes. What is complicated is that sometimes science communication becomes marketing, and it's a bit fake, and we need to avoid that.
yeah.
I'm really trying. Like, for example, at the moment, I'm training a lot of PhD students for my thesis in 180 seconds, and some of the pitches, they sound like LinkedIn posts, so
Uh,
empty. So like, and it's not really what they do, and it's just like selling a promise, they sound like really cool, but it's not exactly what they do. It just sounds so cool. And I'm telling them we need to be more real in science communication. Also, when you don't know, say you don't know. Say this is an
Exactly.
area that is not studied by you, at least, or is not known. Like the number of times during my PhD I said I don't know because I was working on a new thing, and we basically had only 60 papers about the whole subject. So lots of things I was like, I don't know. And I
Yeah.
think it's good to learn to say, I don't know. And it's also really good to not oversell your research.
Exactly. Yes.
Because you're
Agree.
like, lots of people, they think science communication, they have to relate to general, to a public, to the life in general. So they oversell it like, oh yeah, if we do that, we're going to cure like this disease forever.
Yeah.
And
I save the
no,
world.
exactly. No, you're not going to do that. But you're going
No.
to maybe bring a brick. I often say it's like a
Contribute.
Lego wall or a
Yeah.
house. See researchers as like different people working on a house. You have different subjects that are going to see things differently. For COVID, it was that basically. We had a house, we had to build it, we didn't know how to do it. And then you had people that were like doing the plumbing, doing the electricity, doing the walls at the same time. And obviously, you had to wait at the end to see the full picture of the house until everyone
Hmm.
was building it. And during COVID time, people were like, "Look, I have a brick," and then people were like, "Oh yeah, this is it." But then it was just a part of the house, and then you had the plumbing and the electricity and everything. And this is science. So if you oversell it, it's not that you avoid fixing deeper problems. It's just you oversell the thing, and you're just saying it's fine, and people might think actually this is not a problem anymore in life, but actually it is.
Hmm.
So it's important to just stay real. And I think also, when you're a researcher, and especially I've seen that with Pint of Science, people always feel like they have to say success stories. But I think sometimes saying like, this doesn't work, this we don't know, I think it makes you real,
Hmm.
and it makes you trustable more as well. Because if you're just like this successful person that is just curing the world, it's just
Yeah.
whatever we see on TV anyway.
Yeah.
Because often you
Mhm.
see on TVs, and I think that's a problem, is that people think you're a scientist, you know everything on everything. Because
Yeah.
on TVs you have like physicists that are going to talk about viruses, or philosophers that are going to talk about something. It's just the usual scientists they call on TV that's going to talk about everything. And it's
Yes.
good to tell them science and research is actually knowing a lot on like a really tiny, tiny
Yes.
subject.
Yes.
So
Yes.
even I'm a neuroscientist, and people were like, oh, I was working on epilepsy and I didn't even know everything about all the epilepsies because I was working on like a part of the epilepsies. So they're like, oh, you must know everything about Alzheimer's and Parkinson and everything. I'm like, nope, sorry.
Indeed. Okay, now we pass to the last section of my podcast that is called the pill list. Is quick, short questions. So you don't have too much time to think. So the first thing that comes to your mind, there are no wrong answers. So it's about you. So no worries. Are you ready?
Yes.
A book.
A book that I can recommend. I think I've been thinking about that. So there are really cool comic books about science. So I'm not going to say one in general, but I think it's a field that starts to really emerge and is really, really nice. So
Hmm.
go and look for them. In French, we have one that is really cool that is called Les Oubliés de la Science, that is about
Hmm.
lots of people that have been forgotten in science by Camille Van Bell. And it's a really cool thing because you learn a lot about women, obviously, that have been forgotten in science, but also
Hmm.
some men and some really cool science stories.
Coffee or tea? I think you already answered that
Tea,
one.
definitely.
Yes,
Tea,
and you have a
liters of tea every day.
new thermos. A movie that you
Oh,
like or
a
that you.
movie. Oh, yeah, a movie. I would say Don't Look Up. I think as a science
Aha,
communicator,
aha.
it really, really
It's
touched me because
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's exactly the problem. So the pitch in a second is that an asteroid is headed right to Earth, and then there is an astrophysicist that is trying to explain where it's gonna crash and we might all die, but is struggling with the way he's speaking, basically. So it's a great movie for science communication.
You comfort food.
This is melted cheese on bread, like a toasted baguette, and then I melt some camembert on it. Yeah, I'm French.
A scientific paper that stuck with you.
I've seen one not long ago, and it was on huh, what was it again? Dead. I don't
You
remember.
tell
It
me,
was
but you can tell me about what was it about?
okay. So I'm looking for really weird science papers. So one that was really cool was the penguin poop angle, where
Okay.
basically they calculated the angle of which penguin is pooping, and then for the carers in zoos, to avoid being directly hit by the poo.
Ah,
And this is the
interesting.
kind of papers I really like. A lot of papers that are usually getting some ignoble prizes or that kind of things. My kind of papers.
A science communicator that is doing it right,
Uh,
apart from you, of
uh,
course.
difficult. So many science communicator that is doing it right. You.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. But you're very kind. It's not the answer for sure. A word that feels good to say.
Serendipity.
Oh, that's an interesting word. Something that feels like home to you.
A train. A train is definitely, yeah.
A skill that every freelancer needs.
Resist to the stress. Adaptation to stress. Definitely.
A plant that you love.
The ones that don't die, so I still need to find one.
Uh,
I would
Don't
say
tell me
the
a
avocado
plastic.
bits. Yeah, exactly. The plastic. Well, I have some in Paris in my flat when I go. They are plastic and they are amazing. I would say the avocado thing, pit that then you
Mhm.
transform because it can stay in water and it's not that needy, I would say.
A question you ask yourself very often.
Why? Tell me why. No,
Yes.
but exactly why I'm doing things. Sometimes I'm working on projects and I'm like, why would it be a good thing to do it? I think it's important to think about why you're doing things because you often end up really quickly in a hamster wheel and you don't know why you're doing things and you just like do them. And sometimes, especially for new projects or new things, it's like, why do you do that, and like what's the best way for doing it? But the why is the first question usually.
Something non-scientific that brings you joy.
Tea and my cat.
Good answers. Okay, those were my pill list questions. Do you have last words for our audience or people who wants to
Yeah,
pursue a career in science communication, perhaps?
I would say two things. First, don't hesitate to listen. Lots of podcasts exist where people explain their life and everything, and also don't hesitate to contact them. But I think the best is like listen first and then contact them because often, when you've talked about lots of things already, it's available and people contact you and then they ask you the questions that, you've talked about it like several times already. It's better to
Mhm.
go like more in depth personal questions. But don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. I'll be super happy to help. And yeah, go check on my website. I have like lots of places already. I explain my life so I can, you
Yeah.
can learn
Oh,
a bit.
thank you very much for those words. And I just want to say that you inspired me a lot all these years.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I'm one of your fans, and I'm very happy that you
Thank
are
you.
part of my podcast now. So that was Unpeeled with Dr. Banana, where we peel back science beyond the lab and meet people who keep it alive. Huge thanks to Elodie Chabrol for reminding us that living the lab doesn't mean living science, and that curiosity belongs everywhere people do. See you next time. Ask better questions, build better conversations, and don't be afraid to go to a bar to talk about science. Bye bye.